Hey guys, welcome back to the Sum Up. So excited to be here. We're going to talk about 5 writing strategies that you can implement into your math class to get your kids writing during math. This is so important to get them to explain their reasoning, explain their thinking behind how they solve the problems. Anytime we do these though, we have to stress to the kids that they're using the proper vocabulary. Without that, it kind of all breaks down. So we need to be modeling vocabulary. We need to be having them take notes over vocabulary, highlighting things in our book. It's not just a number, it's a coefficient or a constant. We need to use those words. It's not just a letter, it's a variable. It's not just a problem, it's an expression or an equation based on what they give us. So we really got to stress to our kids using the proper vocabulary, and it's going to come out in their writing as you practice that. Okay, so these are 5 really easy, quick strategies we're going to go through, take little to no planning or effort. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is summary writing, which you've probably heard this before, whether it's in your focus note taking, your Cornell notes, in a graphic organizer. I've seen it done really cool in a journal where they summarize at the end of the day their learning for the day, and then they have that to look back through. It's kind of like the closing, so each day they would have a summary and look back at that throughout the week. Very cool idea. But here's the thing, okay, and I see this a lot with kids with summary writing. A summary demonstrates what the kids learned, not what they did, and we have to see that difference. Okay, I'm going to say it again. A summary demonstrates what the kids learned, not what they did. Okay, so as a teacher, whether it was an Avid or my math class, I see a lot of summaries that look like this. So it says, today in class I got a computer, then I worked on iReady, I solved some problems with ratios and proportions, iReady has games built in which I got to play, it was kind of fun. Okay, so they did talk about ratios and proportions, but this is a summary of what they did. We don't want to know what they did. This is not a good summary. We want to know what they learned. Okay, we want to know what they learned. So here's a better example of what a summary should look like. So today in class we learned about ratios and proportions. A ratio is a relationship between two numbers, usually written as a fraction. For example, 3/4 is a ratio. If two ratios are equal, we can call them proportional. There are multiple ways to decide if two ratios are proportional. One way is to cross product. If the outcomes are equal, the ratios are proportionate. So hopefully you can see the difference. One is what they did, the other is what they learned. When we write summaries, we want to demonstrate what we learned, not what we did. So at the end of class, this could be an exit ticket, this could be just a note card you staple into their book, summarize our learning for today. At the beginning, give them a word bank. Give them, here's these vocab words, these 6 words, I need to see this in your summary. Help them out a little bit. Okay, so strategy number 1, summary writing. Let's get to strategy number 2, which is a reflection. Okay, a reflection and a summary are not the same thing. So let's look at the difference between those two. So where a summary is a demonstration of what you learned, we talked about that a second ago, a reflection is having the students look back at how well they learned the material. Okay, so summary is what they learned, reflection, how well did they learn it? So they're looking back and telling you how well they learned it. I did these after quizzes where I would put up some questions like the ones you're going to see right now. So you can see is what conclusions can you make from your last couple of quizzes, what topics have been your strengths and your weaknesses, did you meet your goal that you wrote previously, and what's a goal for the next 3 quizzes. So a reflection is getting them just to look back and take ownership for what they've learned or what they still need to learn, and getting them to pick those pieces out. So number 1 was summary writing. Number 2, a reflection. Again, this could be after a quiz. This could be a quick exit ticket on what you thought of today. Based on what we learned today, what was a strength you thought you had today, what was a weakness. Again, if they need help with vocabulary at first, give them a word bank. Use these in your reflection. There you go. Okay, so number 1, summary. 2, reflection. Let's look at number 3. So number 3 is going to be justifying and explaining our reasoning. Okay, very cool, very important. I really like using this with my kids. So when they're justifying or explaining, they're explaining the why and the how behind their work. So some of the whys are, why is this answer a reasonable one? Can our kids explain why this makes sense? Why did you choose to solve the problem this way? So they're explaining, okay, I chose this way because a lot of problems have different ways to solve them. How did you get to your answer? So explaining how you ended up at this outcome. And then how does the problem compare to another problem that we've done? So relating to problems that we've done. Okay, again, these could be scriptive questions that you put up on the board and they have to answer them, but getting them to explain and justify the why and the how behind their work, behind the answer they got, is a great way to get them writing. Let's go to number 4. Number 4 is a compare and contrast. This is really cool because it could build on each other over time. So the example I'm putting up on the screen is from course 1, Module 1, okay, and this is page 8 and 9, when they start talking about expressions and equations. So you could do this as a 3-column notes, you could do this as a Venn diagram. So at first you might just say, okay, based on these definitions, what could we put in? So what's similar and different based on only the definitions of an equation and expression? Then as we learn more throughout the module, we can add back to this so it's a living document and it's growing. So I could say, okay, after I've learned that an expression doesn't have an equal sign, an equation has to have an equal sign, I can add that to it. And then we just build on it as we go. So that would be comparing and contrasting. You can do this with any 2 topics that relate to each other. Pretty simple, pretty easy, and again, I like it because it's a living document that builds on each other. Our last strategy we're going to focus on is writing out the steps to our problem and how we solved it. I know me and the other 8th grade teacher at CMA last year, we loved this one. We did it probably once a day with one problem. We would make them do it. And again, it's just really getting them to explain their reasoning as we go through it. So this example comes from a Course 3 book. It's just a simple equation that they would be solving. So the directions in the book are very simple, just says solve the equation. But then from there, we're going to dig deeper. So your first step would be go ahead, have them solve the equation, as you can see on the screen. Then from there, they're going to go ahead and write out all of the steps one by one that they use to solve the equation. Again, we talked about this earlier. Focus on vocabulary. Have them underline their vocab throughout. So you can see, like the first step says, combine like terms by using inverse operations to subtract 4x from 8x. So again, we're trying to get them to use vocabulary as they go through this. This is, again, is a great way to get them to explain their reasoning and explain their thought process throughout. You can have them partner share this and see if their steps line up or if someone solved it a little bit different. It also could work for a word problem. So this example comes from the Course 2 book where there's a word problem. They go through, they mark the text, they solve it. From there, they're going out and they're going to write all the steps out using vocabulary as they go through it. Okay, guys, so that wraps up our 5 strategies. Again, we got summaries, we have reflections, we have compare and contrast, we have justifying our reasoning and explaining our reasoning, and then our 5th one that we had was writing out the steps to our problem that we solved. Any way that we can get our kids writing, the more, the merrier. So here's your challenge, real quick as we leave. Pick one of these strategies or a different strategy that you like for writing and try and incorporate it into a lesson within the next couple of weeks. Again, this is as easy as just taking a note card, stapling it into your book, or having them write straight into the book. It's up to you, but try and pick one of these to incorporate in. I would love to hear about it, especially your successes and how they're working. Okay? Have a great day. You guys are awesome.